All right, David, see if that came through for you.
All right, now I just got to get back to the right meeting. How do I share my screen now?
You should be able to share one window.
There we go. I want.
It's in your mail right now. You might have to open it first.
Thought I clicked the button, but I suppose I didn't click this button. There we go.
You've got it?
We're getting there shortly.
Okay.
Sometime this week we'll get there.
I apologize. I forgot to change the date on the subject line, so it looks like it's last week's legislative list, but it's this week's in the email I sent.
Well, maybe window, because that's your edge there.
There you go. That's calendar.
So, yeah, you might just have to break it because it's going to be on the window.
I think if you just pull it up, Shane's got it. You've got it in front of yourself, don't you, Shane?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can pull it up. Just
Well,
last
that's
week, you said it looked small on your end.
Oh, we got it.
No,
We're just
okay.
trying to share it on the Teams link. So
Oh,
I don't think we need to share it with Shane.
No, we
He's
don't.
got it. We just
It's-
need to have it for us.
as long as somebody's driving on that end, I can start going through. So,
all right, go
All
ahead.
all right. So again, the far left column is just the color code. If it's yellow, hearing has been scheduled. This matches with the fourth column, column F. If it's gray, hearing's not been scheduled. If it's orange, the hearing's been held and we have some action pending. If it's green, it's been passed as amended. And blue, signed by the governor, and red is failed or withdrawn. So we'll start with the yellows in column F. And those are committee hearings that are either today or sometime next week. And so beginning with, and if there's a bill you want to stop and talk about, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of hit them high level so we get through them. HB 1371 was heard today at 9. It's a bill that amends the North Dakota's Uniform Group Insurance Program, provides special insurance benefits for retired peace officers. Senate Bill 2337 had a hearing this morning, and I just put it on here for information. I thought maybe with regard to ownership of land in around Minot, this would increase the restrictions on foreign investment in agricultural lands and development. Specifically, as you look at the description, the bill reduces the ownership threshold for prohibited foreign investments from 50 to 25%. Another bill heard this morning was Senate Bill 2340, and that authorizes legislative manager to conduct a comprehensive study of fire services in North Dakota. This was really prompted by the fires out in the western part of the state, but a study that would look at how better to coordinate all the firefighting organizations that we have in the state. I did sit through this hearing this morning. Another hearing that's now scheduled now into next week is 1194. This bill amends North Dakota law regarding false information or false reports to law enforcement. It does some updating. And moving on, that hearing would be on let's see, the 3rd would be Monday. So next bill is 1585. And this requires peace officers in North Dakota to report individuals they reasonably believe are undocumented immigrants to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That hearing is on Monday at 11 a.m. Another Monday hearing at 10 a.m. Is a bill that is House Bill 1605, proposes to prohibit the intentional addition of fluoride to public water supplies in North Dakota. Defines fluoride as chemical compounds containing the fluoride ion, including sodium fluoride and hydrofluoric acid, and defines public water supply as water systems serving at least 15 connections or 25 people for at least 60 days annually. So again, there's more in the description there regarding some of the fines, but that hearing is at Monday at 10 a.m. Senate Bill 2201 is also on Monday. This has already been in policy down to approps and then re-referred back to policy. And as you track these bills, sometimes they take those winding paths like that. So this has already had a hearing. This is regarding the primary residence tax credit and clarifying a definition eligibility for $500 property tax credit that currently exists, and correcting the situation in which somebody has a trust in which they place their residence. That's one of the primary objectives of this bill.
There was 4,000 of those
4,000 of
Yeah.
those. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
that had been trusts.
Yep.
Okay.
Senate Bill. Yep. Go ahead.
One quick, just general question.
Yep.
I see this is headed back to the House side, but
Yeah.
Are either side intending to take any action? I talked to Headland, and it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like they're holding off a little bit and trying to get all the ideas together before they start taking action. Is the Senate doing the same? I haven't watched that side.
Maybe Randy has some insight on that. So
Well, the bill that Shane just referred to has nothing to do with the new property tax reform. This has to do with the tax credit
yeah.
we made the mistake of not including those homes that were in trust. So this is going to fix that, and it's going to make it retroactive for those people. So as far as the other question,
Yeah, this has actually jumped over to the other chamber now. So have its first hearing
Yep.
at 9 a.m. So it fixes that so that taxpayers, you're fixing it retroactively.
yeah, even retroactively,
So
back. They'll get 1,000
That's
back.
the rush on this one.
Okay, and that makes sense. So, but Randy, do you get the sense that the Senate side as well is going to hold on the bigger reform bills, kind of to make sure they've got all the ideas together at once?
Well, I know the governor wants this bill to be on his desk soon. He wants it to be one of the first things. So there was probably 40 bills that were filed like that. I'm sure there'll be a lot of back and forth, but they're going to come to. It's going to include the price caps. I'm sure, people. So I think that much is very likely. But I think they'll be done with it soon. I don't know what soon means, but Governor Armstrong said he wants it on his desk as fast as he can get it.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to Senate Bill 2225. David, let's see. No, this isn't that one. This bill provides $50 million from the SIF fund to the Department of Commerce for housing, for opportunity, mobility, and empowerment, or the home grant program. So this is now in Senator Probst, and the hearing on this in Senator Probst is on Monday. So Senate Bill 2323 is the one that David came down and testified on last week. And now it's been referred to a Probst, so it's gone through the policy committee. And as I've indicated before, with the money that's in the bill, this would be, we estimated about $2 million per year to Minot per each fiscal year. So about a $4 million bill for the biennium, providing some impact grants for debt that was taken out in response to oil-related growth. So it's moving forward.
That's Senator Beckett-All was kind of the. Yep.
Beckett-All is the prime on that. Like I said, the policy bill was held earlier this week, and now the appropriations will take it up on Monday.
Are you thinking that we should have somebody down there for that one, Shane?
I think that would be advisable. Yep, I do. Especially if Probst has questions. David, I think somebody should be here to address that. So that's at 3:15 on Monday. So we could just rework the testimony that we worked up last week.
Okay.
And we also have the benefit of seeing how Williston and Dickinson presented their case too. So if you want to make any changes, you can. So. All right, moving on, Senate Bill 2369 amends North Dakota law regarding sales tax exemptions for nonprofit organizations that conduct educational, religious, or charitable activities. You can read more about the bill there. The hearing on this is on Monday at 10 a.m. Senate Bill 2372 creates a new legacy earnings fund mechanism here that will receive distributions from the state legacy funds calculated as 8% of the 5-year average legacy fund balance. So it's maybe Randy knows more about this, but the up to 102 million would go to the legacy sinking interest fund for debt service payments, then 225 million directed to the general fund for tax relief, and then 100 million will go to legacy earnings highway distribution fund. So this is going to be up for hearing on Monday.
Boy, Monday's going to be a busy day.
Yeah. 2397. I put this on here just to kind of keep track of it. It amends the definition of non-oil producing county, which Ward already meets that definition. But it would change the criteria for counties that receive less than 5 million in funding. It changes it to a production-based formula over a 3-year period. My understanding is the effect of this is to put more counties that are in western North Dakota into the prairie dog buckets.
I think you're right.
So I think that's the effort behind this bill. On Tuesday, HB 1226 is a bill that is about wearing masks in public by adding a new provision that makes it illegal to wear a mask or face covering in a public place with the intent to conceal one's identity while congregating with other masked individuals. So it does exempt Halloween and masquerade parties. Yeah. So those are protected, and then has some punishments in there as well. Another one on Tuesday at 3 p.m. is House Bill 1362. This one establishes a housing development loan fund administered by BND, provide low interest loans to local banks for housing development program. The fund would receive a one-time transfer of 10 million and then offer loans of up to 5 million per county or 10 million in counties receiving high oil and gas tax revenues. And the interest rate on this would be 2%. And so it's repayment due by June 30th of 2030.
It's considered an emergency measure.
Yeah. It's got an emergency clause on it too. Yep. HB 1391 is a bill that amends North Dakota's human rights and anti-discrimination laws to add health status as a protected category across multiple sections of the state's legal code. And health status means an individual's medical records or preferences related to the right to refuse medical procedures, treatments, injections, etc., vaccines, prophylactic measures. So basically, would not be able to discriminate on the basis of medical treatments or refusals of medical treatments that somebody may have. It also expands existing protections that cover characteristics like race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, and disability. All right, and then House Bill 1487 authorizes DOT to transfer approximately 1.25 acres of land located in Ward County to the Office of Management and Budget. Exempts this land transfer from certain existing state status regarding property transfers, and then appropriates $4.9 million from the general fund to OMB to construct a new facility in Minot that will be leased to other state agencies. So it's designated as a one-time funding item and granted an exemption from state budget rules. So a new state office building in Minot, I guess, is the aim of this bill for Tuesday at 10:30. Moving into Wednesday, the 5th, House Bill 1435. This is also dealing with the legacy funds. This says that every odd numbered year, the state treasurer will distribute an amount equal to 7% of legacy funds 5-year average, and then allocate those funds in a specific order. So I think we've got some reconciliation to do with some of those legacy fund transfers with the duplicate bill in the House. Yep. Maybe, and some differences that will have to ultimately be reconciled in these bills. All right, HB 1235 expands the North Dakota law concerning the agricultural infrastructure grant program and expands the potential scope of road and bridge improvement grants. The bill adds the word city to the list of roadways eligible for corridor improvements alongside the existing county and township roadways. So there is an expansion here for some city infrastructure. That bill is up on
The 6th.
the 6th. So the 6th is Thursday. House Bill 1303 establishes new regulations regarding immigration enforcement in North Dakota. This is the bill that basically kind of prohibits and limits sanctuary policies that cities may want to try to move forward. So, and that has some definitions about alien and illegal alien, et cetera. But that's kind of the bottom line of the bill. And the bill also aims to ensure full cooperation between local and state authorities and federal immigration enforcement agencies. House Bill 1375 modifies North Dakota's alcohol regulation laws. So in this bill, there's some new provisions. You'll see first, it limits local governing bodies to conducting only 2 compliance checks per month at a licensed premise and prohibits random inquiries without a reasonable suspicion of a violation. So I'm presuming this means there's no more surprise drop-ins unless there's some sort of reasonable suspicion. And then creates a new requirement that allows peace officers to request a photo ID from individuals suspected being under 21 in a licensed establishment, and an infraction for failure to provide that. And that infraction would be dismissed if they later prove their age. So if they just forgot their ID, weren't able to present it, they can get that dismissed if they're able to prove it later. And then amends some of the complaint process against licensed alcohol retailers. 1513 amends North Dakota's existing law regarding municipal sidewalk construction and repair. This is late afternoon next Thursday. It modifies the process by which local governments notify property owners about required sidewalk work. And it specifies that when a governing body determines a sidewalk needs to be constructed, rebuilt, or repaired, it must notify the property owner or occupant by certified mail or postal delivery, providing details about the required work, include a description of the lot and parcel, and then give the owner at least 2.5 years to complete the work. So, and then after that 2.5-year period, if the work is not done, then the street commissioner or city engineer can perform the repairs. So you'd have to be 2.5 years really ahead of the potential work that needs to be done to allow the homeowner the amount of time they need to try to fix this. I'm told that this was, I think this is Representative Van Winkle's bill, that this was prompted by a situation that a constituent of hers or somebody in Minot came forward to tell her about. So that hearing is on Thursday at 4:00 in the afternoon. 1518, there's actually a couple bills on rotary traffic islands
Roundabout.
or roundabouts. Yep. This, changes the requirement for signaling when leaving a roundabout. I'm not sure what the previous law was. I think the previous law seemed to prohibit exiting the roundabout without signaling. I guess as a driver, don't know that I was even aware of whether you're required to signal or not, but the language appears to simply require the driver signal their intention to exit. So that's what that does. HB 1537 is amending North Dakota law to clarify protections for water service providers who receive state loans for infrastructure improvements. Specifies that a political subdivision providing water service cannot have its service curtailed or limited if it is included within the boundaries of another political subdivision during the time of its loan. Guess I'm not exactly sure. It does remove previous language about negotiating agreements between political subdivisions and eliminates requirements for involving the Public Finance Authority in these negotiations. Okay, moving on, HB 1588 makes several changes to laws regarding dangerous weapons and firearms. Expands the definition of a dangerous weapon by increasing the blade length threshold from 5 to 6 inches. This was prompted by, I think, Fargo city commissioners and somebody who had apparently made it a habit of wearing a knife under the current length into the room every time, and now resulted in a bill to extend the length of those weapons. Or shorten the length of those weapons, I guess. So, Senate Bill 2306 establishes a child care workforce recruitment and retention program in North Dakota. Provides some monthly incentive payments to licensed early childhood service providers, and then has some more specifics there that you can dig into. That hearing is on Thursday morning at 9:45. Senate Bill 2314 is on Thursday morning. This bill creates new restrictions and penalties for development agreements involving foreign adversaries. It applies to county commissioners, city councils, and state entities. And so as a city body, you'd be prohibited from approving development agreements with individuals or governments identified as foreign adversaries under federal regulations or that are on that Office of Foreign Asset Control Sanctions list. But there is some grandfathering going on here, because if they've been a duly registered business for at least 7 years and approved by the Committee on Foreign Investment and maintain active national security agreement with the federal government, they'd be grandfathered in. So,
Shane, so just quickly on that one, would there be state resources to help the process? So, because we'd have to vet every project, right?
you'd have to, as part of the due diligence, absolutely request that of the applicant, at least, to get their disclaimer on the record, I guess, or regarding that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. But you asked if there were state resources, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
SB 2317 is on Thursday at 9:30. And this I thought was initially just focused on townships and their ability to reclaim their powers from the county, but you'll notice as you get into the bill too, it does maintain the existing provisions about how agreements between political subdivisions can be amended or terminated. So I just put this on the watch list. It looks to be predominantly about the relationship between townships and counties, but there's language in there regarding political subdivisions. It looks like I said, they're trying to maintain that, but
There's over 1,400 townships in this state. 1,400.
1,400.
A lot of
Yeah.
townships.
Senate Bill 2321 is also on Thursday morning. It amends North Dakota's eminent domain laws, designed to provide more protections to property owners. It clarifies and expands the circumstances under which defendants can recover costs and fees in eminent domain proceedings, and then allows property owners to be reimbursed for reasonable attorney's fees and expert witness costs if a public entity withdraws or dismisses a condemnation proceeding without the defendant's agreement. And then has some other provisions in here as well. So, Senate Bill 2371, another rotary traffic bill. Again, roundabouts. This one makes two key changes, again, about exiting a rotary traffic island. So it looks like we got another companion bill here about how to exit a roundabout.
Yeah.
So, HB 1306. This is open records bill. It clarifies initial requests can be made verbally or in writing, and that public entities cannot ask requesters about their motives or identity. That is the existing law. This is clarifying that. Establishes a fee structure for copying records, including charging up to 25 cents per paper, and allows reasonable fees for non-paper copies based on actual production costs, and permits entities to charge for postage and can require prepayment for this. And also allows a fee of up to $25 per hour after the first hour for locating and redacting records. And then includes a provision that each citizen is entitled to one free records request per year that it takes less than 40 hours to produce. So you kind of get the first 40 hours there. The law then also allows entities to withhold records if the requester has outstanding balances. That was driven by a situation I know of in Mandan where they were withholding records from somebody because he hadn't paid. And the Attorney General issued an opinion in which they said, no, you can't. That can't be a reason for you not to provide records. You have to pursue that separately. You can't hold that out. This bill would change that.
Okay.
And if they have an unpaid bill and have another records request, they got to come, you can make them come clean on that first bill before you respond to the second request. That's my understanding.
Okay.
My only concern there is the 40 hours. And that's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's a whole week for somebody,
Okay.
right? So,
And
yeah.
if I have several open records requests at the same time and they're all 40 hours, I could have a whole bunch of staff dedicated. All they're doing is public records requests. And, you know, we're paying all of that. So, you know.
So anyway, that's House Bill 1306. If there's concerns and you want to weigh in on it, that's Thursday at 9 a.m. House Bill 1307 modifies North Dakota law regarding home rule counties and cities, clarifying the relationship between local ordinances and state laws. The bill changes language that previously allowed home rule counties and cities to supersede state laws with their own ordinances to a more restrictive approach. So under the new provisions, any ordinance enacted by a home rule county or city that conflicts with state law will be considered void rather than automatically superseding state law. So this is the supremacy debate, if you will, or issue between the state and home rule. It does maintain the fundamental process of ratifying home rule charters through majority vote approval and requires copies of the charter be filed with Secretary of State and local record keeping officials. So that's really the heart of this bill is the relationship between state law that conflicts with something might be in the home rule exercise of home rule authority.
So are we trying to kill home rule then? I mean, what's the purpose of home rule city then if this passes?
So Representative Casper is the prime on the bill.
He sponsored 37 bills.
Yeah. And I honestly don't know what's driving this one. I haven't talked to anybody about it.
This would be a good one. There's a couple, both Hogue, Lauser, Paulson, and Ruby are all on it. It'd be a good one to bring up Saturday when they're here.
I mean,
It's not
it-
on Saturday.
It's basic-
There's not a forum on Saturday.
It's not this Saturday?
I don't think so. I think they just
It's an
go
off
back
one?
out.
Okay.
You
So
do
is it
those
basi-
every other week, right?
Well, I think there is one tomorrow.
And
Is
then
there?
if it's, there is one
I think there
tomorrow.
was.
Yep, I have it on my
I think
calendar.
we were doing a couple early back to
Can
back.
look.
But I think we should try to talk to them tomorrow about that. We'll see if they know where Casper is going.
I mean, if it's pretty much just saying that if there's regulations outlined in state law, we can't use home rule to exempt from that. But if it's not addressed in state law, then the cities have authority to make up their own regulations and rules for it. I mean, I guess I can understand that, but I don't know. It just,
Olson and Ruby are on it too.
okay. So that question for another day.
All right. So anyway, that's Thursday morning, 10 a.m. HB 1500, we always see a bill regarding non-conforming residential structures, and this year's no exception. We have House Bill 1500 on Friday, and creates new sections of law that provide uniform guidelines for handling non-conforming residential structures. Again, those are buildings that were legally constructed but no longer meet current zoning requirements. So under the new provisions, a non-conforming residential structure damaged beyond 50% of its value can be repaired, replaced, or rebuilt if specific conditions are met, such as submitting a building permit application within 6 months of damage, beginning restoration within 1 year, and ensuring the new structure does not occupy a different lot area, exceed the original structure size or height, reduce parking spaces, violate building or health codes, pose safety risks, or encroach on public right-of-ways or neighboring properties. So
So
again,
is
that
it-
bill's on Friday.
Is this trying to allow people to not have to update their electrical, let's say, if they have a big amount of damage? Is that the general idea?
It's to move and giving them more flexibility in rebuilding residential structures that don't reform. So, but I do think it's, as I close out there in the description, it is trying to maintain basic safety and neighborhood compatibility standards in the process. So I think it's a move to provide the homeowners a little more flexibility.
There is a forum tomorrow.
I think you're right. I thought there was.
My bad.
Okay, any more on 1500? All right, moving on to Senate Bill 2332. We have another legacy fund earnings. This one would create a new legacy earnings emergency services and public safety fund and establish an advisory board, and it redirects 25 million to this new fund, which will provide grants to support emergency services and public safety across the state. So the board would consist of representatives from emergency services, law enforcement, local government, and legislative bodies appointed by the governor and legislative leadership, and then they would review grants, prioritize those, etc. And then the final bill that I'm tracking that's up for a hearing next week would be House Bill 1365. It makes several modifications to North Dakota's laws regarding firearms and dangerous weapons and focuses on liability protections and restrictions for public and school spaces. So it creates two new sections. State law provide liability exemptions for public and private entities when individuals with valid concealed carry licenses are present, and establishes then specific conditions under which local governments can prohibit firearms in publicly owned buildings, such as requiring weapon detection equipment and armed security. And then it amends existing law to clarify restrictions on possessing firearms at schools and school-sponsored events, maintains exceptions for certain groups like law enforcement, armed forces members, and individuals with specific authorizations. And then finally, specifies that schools and public buildings can still authorize less than lethal weapons as part of security plans. Violations would be considered infractions. So that covers the hearings for next week. As you go through the rest of the spreadsheet, we move into orange. Again, orange simply means that it remains in committee and hasn't received any kind of floor action yet. It could be on the docket even, but you can see the dates that it was, the last action was taken on the bill. Some of these are just transfers over to the next entity. So see here. And as we go through those, so those bills are just going to, like I said, either be on their way over to the other chamber or still in committee. And with my notes, I'm just scrolling through them quickly. You can look through them at your own leisure. And then we get down to bills that have been introduced. That's in the gray, but haven't had a hearing yet. So these are ones that we may not have talked about yet. And we can just kind of, one of them, 1402, deals with transfer of state surplus motor vehicles by modifying existing process for how these vehicles are distributed. Currently, surplus property can be transferred at fair market value to state agencies and political subdivisions and eligible nonprofit organizations. This would introduce a new requirement that surplus motor vehicles must first be made available exclusively to political subdivisions. That's the main thrust of that bill. Senate Bill 2208 amends law related to infrastructure funding for municipalities and counties in non-oil producing areas. Modifies municipal infrastructure fund and county township infrastructure fund. I'm just have this on the watch list just to watch. And then you'll see down below, halfway through, the bill introduces a new provision that disqualifies cities or counties from receiving grants if they adopt ordinances that interfere with state-approved energy infrastructure projects. So this is really designed to not provide any, I think, prairie dog funding or other kinds of funding to political subdivisions that get in the way of a state-sponsored project of some kind. That's Senate Bill 2208. House Bill 1576 is just a comprehensive study of the oil and gas tax revenue allocation formulas during the interim. And we'll take a look at the methods of distributing tax revenue to political subdivisions. So we'll want to watch that, obviously, since mine is on the receiving end of some of those distributions. 2269 gets into our recall, petition, and election procedures, and it focuses on the recall process for political subdivision officials and city governing body members. The bill introduces a new section creating a specific recall process for city governing body members, requiring a higher signature threshold of 35% of voters from the most recent election compared to the previous 25%, and mandates that recall petitions have 15 qualified city elector sponsors, and including a stated reason for recall. And then has some provisions in there about the timeline, etc. Senate Bill 2307 has been introduced. The bill addresses obscenity control in North Dakota, focuses on protecting minors from explicit sexual material in public libraries, school libraries, and digital resources. Senate Bill 2350. This one amends open records law to modify the confidentiality of employee performance and discipline records. Sound familiar? So, no hearing on this, been introduced. It has been referred to Workforce Development Committee in the Senate. So you're all familiar with that bill. Senate Bill 2351 amends Century Code by modifying the requirements for handling school district annexation petitions. I just put this in here just kind of for FYI. Senate Bill 2378 establishes new limitations on how much North Dakota taxing districts can increase their annual budgets without voter approval. This is a bill that would restrict budget increases to the percentage change in the consumer price index for the Midwest region. And let me look at this here once. This is, no, hearing's been scheduled. I would have thought this would have been scheduled already, but it hasn't. The prime on this is Senator Weber. So it looks like one more tax bill, property tax reform bill. Senate Bill 2379 amends rules for surveying land during eminent domain proceedings. The key change here is that it would require written consent from the landowner or court order before entering the property to conduct surveys. And it clarifies that the survey must be done in a way that provides the greatest public benefit while causing the least private injury. Senate Bill 2382 has been introduced, creates a legal framework for addressing vexatious litigation, which is defined as legal actions primarily intended to harass, cause unnecessary burden, or impede the judicial process. Senate Bill 2389 is a bill directing the North Dakota Legislative Management to conduct a comprehensive study of the state's child care infrastructure during the interim. And looks like I'm missing my description here for HCR 3022, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's direct legislative management to consider studying political subdivisions, making investments in stable coins. And then we move on and we see bills that have failed in red. And I'll leave these on here on this tracking sheet until we get to crossover, and then I'll be taking these failed bills off and starting over in the chamber. But I'll leave them on here for the month of February and just keep adding to them as they fail. So
one quick note on 1307 on that home rule charter one. I looked at the bill quick. It looks really comprehensive to me, Shane. It looks, because it just essentially says if it conflicts with state law, it's void.
yeah,
So it doesn't look like there's carve outs or, just it's picking at the edges. This is saying no, state law supersedes. So I'll call before tomorrow. I'll call Casper because he's the prime on it, and I'll talk to him and make sure I understand his intent. Because I think putting, Hogue and Paulson, those guys, they're on it, but as we saw last week, they don't always know what they've signed on to. So
Right.
I'll try and call Jim and see what he's trying to do with that, because that's a really sweeping change the way that's written from what I can see.
yeah, it definitely. It's a state supremacy issue over local home rule. So.
Yeah,
It's
I
kind
mean, to me, it seems to gut home rule, like, except for what Harold said, where state law doesn't say anything, home rule could step in. But outside of that, the rest of it's moot. You can't do anything that's in state law.
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Right. That's the tracking list. Let's go back to the funding for the hub cities, the additional funding there. Who are you thinking would come down on that one?
I think it'll probably come down.
Okay.
Unless we have a elected official that wants to go.
Well, if that's on Monday, that we have a council meeting. Right?
We do.
Yeah.
And if the hearing's
All right.
at 3:15, I just don't think it.
Yeah. We won't be able to.
Right, so another update on the flood protection. We've talked with the committee about the effect of inflation and that affects both the state and local shares with regard to project completion, and how that and that some decisions will have to be made about adopting the amount of state support in the biennium in order to accommodate those, or else pushing out the timeline, or a combination of both of those things. And the other issue is a work on a plan to better manage the cash. So the cash is allocated and committed to the project, but sometimes not utilized, including maybe not being utilized in the biennium. And so they're trying to see, I know some of the House members are working on the idea of allowing the state water commission and the water department the authority to not do bonding, but rather to have a line of credit out of the Bank of North Dakota that would allow the state to better manage the cash in a way that could generate some higher earnings, so that it didn't have to always kind of be liquid available for project needs. And that could also get us in a position of being able to contract on a longer term commitments from the state for the project. So those discussions are happening and going on right now on the House side. And we're responding to requests for information in that regard. What does 3% inflation look like? What is 4%? What is 5%? And then likewise, responding to specifically the request to how much cash is needed as to how much commitment is needed in the next biennium, to see if some of those cash management tools that I talked about could be better deployed for the state side of it. So that's a little bit of what's going on there.
So Shane, is that discussion happening in Nathan's committee?
Yes,
Okay.
largely driven by Steve Swantek, who Nathan's sort of delegated this to. So.
So that's Lauser's committee, so.
Yep, and we've met with them now several times on this. And we've been trying to be very responsive to his needs so that he can do the analysis on this and other large scale projects, because this is not just the Minot flood protection. They're thinking about this. They're looking at Red River water supply, looking at
A lot of them.
the other big projects in the state. So there is a desire to try to get less cash. They're committed. I think they're absolutely committed to the Minot flood protection. That's not in question. They're trying to see if there are ways of freeing up some of the cash, though, that sits in the Natural Water Resources Trust Fund to move along other projects in the state as well. So we're definitely at the table engaging in those conversations.
It's meant to have us be more flexible with more buying power though, right? That's the aim. It's not meant to limit what we may need.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, if anything, to give us a little more flexibility, perhaps try to attract, right now, one of the issues is there's a lot of federal dollars out there tying up the big contractors. And if you've got a contractor sitting in Minnesota, they might look at a project in Fargo, but to move all their work crews all the way up here for what was perceived to them to be maybe a shorter stint than other projects they may have closer to home, with everything that's going on, to make Minot more attractive, we really need maybe longer term contracts. I mean, I leave that for all of you on that end, but that's the workforce challenge is one of the biggest cost factors for driving the inflation.
Construction inflation, workforce.
Right. Okay, that's all I have on this end. If there's any questions on your end, I'm fire away.
I'll have a Senate floor session in 9 minutes, so I think I'm ready to take my position there, as Mark Jansen is going to be my guest today.
Yeah,
All right.
sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Shane.
I'll stay on if there's more questions.
Any questions?